Hello and welcome if you're new to my channel, and if you're a subscriber, a warm welcome back. A few weeks ago, I traveled out to the United States of America to take a look at a number of American luxury brands. When I got back, I was umming and ahhing whether to create a video just giving a brief overview of my trip. And then one of my wonderful subscribers, Unati, chimed in my comment section and asked if I could talk about where I stayed, where I went shopping, and some of the things I did, just to get her creative juices going in anticipation of her trip in August. I can't help so much with the shopping because I didn't really shop. I picked up a couple of things here and there, but my focus was really on maximizing my time there to see brands, look at brands, and explore other opportunities around that. So this video is detailing the hotels I stayed in, a couple of fun things I did just to make things a little more fun, to motivate me, and then some of the brands and the shopping districts I touched on. I'm Anesu Sagonda, and I produce educational luxury content for anyone after the finer things, whether you're young and starting out in life and wanting to reap the benefits of buying quality from the get-go, or you're new to money and wanting to learn how to navigate the terrain, or you're into luxury but you want to focus more on quality under the radar brands, then my content is geared towards you. I was in New York for 7 nights and 8 days, and I split my time between 2 hotels. The first 4 nights I was at a hotel called One Hotel Central Park, and the final 3 nights I was in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, in a hotel called the Williamsburg Hotel. I was incredibly strategic about the 2 hotels that I chose, and I literally spent a whole weekend researching the hotels before ultimately booking a hotel. I must have looked at easily 30 hotels. The first hotel I chose for a number of reasons. Firstly, its proximity to Central Park. I'm somebody who enjoys exercising. I typically run in a park in London, and I wanted to replicate that in New York. I didn't want a situation where I was running around the streets. I'm not familiar with the streets, with the area, and also figuring out traffic and pedestrians and safety of different areas. The hotel was literally a 45-second walk to Central Park, 1.5 miles down to Jackie Kennedy Onassis Reservoir. Did a couple of rounds of that and then came back to the hotel. I found it incredibly motivating, running somewhere different. Everything is new. The views around the reservoir of New York were absolutely spectacular. And then also feeding off the energy of the other runners, and also there were cyclists, and especially 6:30 when I was exercising, there were so many people out there. I absolutely enjoyed it. The second reason was also the hotel's proximity to Madison Avenue and Park Avenue, where I was going to see a good number of some of the brands I wanted to see. I wanted somewhere that was literally a 5-10 minute walk maximum to those locations. And I also wanted to look around and see other brands, European brands in the United States, how they're positioned, the collection, what they have, experience the service, for example. So it was a very good location for that, as well as Bergdorf Goodman's and also Saks. I wanted to talk about the luxury department stores in the United States, but I actually didn't have a very good experience at Bergdorf Goodman's, to the point where I complained to someone who was fairly senior, and we did talk about what happened. And I would like to give the luxury department stores another stab next time I'm in the United States. The other reason I chose One Hotel Central Park was also the fact that it sells itself as sustainable luxury. It's an urban retreat inspired by nature. The hotel is designed using reclaimed materials, and you see that theme wonderfully throughout the hotel. You have a lot of your creams, your greens, your browns, your nature colors around there, and you see plants growing on the walls as opposed to big bouquets of flowers, for example. And I like that theme. Specifically looking at the room, the first 2 nights I was in a City Lounge King. The room was on the 6th floor, views over a fairly busy street, but the height and also the double glazing meant a lot of the noise was buffered out. All you really heard was the distant hum of traffic. It wasn't loud enough to cause any concern. wonderful day bed where I sat and relaxed and read books, made calls, took calls, and just looked over the traffic at the people down below, people watching below, and then ahead of you was Central Park. All the wood in the room was reclaimed, sustainably sourced linen. The mattresses were all custom made from organic cotton, and the toiletries from a British brand called Bamford, legendary for their organic natural products. And I also like the fact that in the hotel there were a number of troughs dotted around the hotel where you could just help yourself to fruit as and when you chose. But I liked that sustainable element to the hotel, some of the brands in the minibar. It was absolutely fantastic, and it ticked that box. And then the final reason was the fact that their restaurant, Jams, is focused on your farm to table concept. I like restaurants where it's all about local, seasonal, and where possible, organic products. A fairly easy brasserie style menu. The food was well prepared. It was decent. I enjoyed it, and I particularly liked their mixed berry smoothie. One of the days had burgers. I'm not a big burger fan unless they're actually made from scratch. And then you could just taste the quality of the ingredients. For example, the pickles were fresh pickles, and it wasn't ingredients that were mass made. It was really tasty, freshly prepared, big, thick cut fries. I enjoyed it. And then the final 2 nights of my stay at One Hotel Central Park moved to a city suite, double the size of City Lounge King. Everything was separate. So there was a living room, and then there was a seating space with a sofa, and then another seating space where you had a table you could work or you could dine, have meals brought over, and then a separate bedroom and a separate bathroom. What I noticed with the City Lounge King was the bathroom was right next to the bed, and it had glass walls all around, although there was a curtain which you could pull. What do you guys think about that whole concept? I just think it's a little too cool. You need privacy. You need privacy when you're in the bathroom. I don't think it's something people need to see, especially if you're sharing the room with someone else. If you have guests, what do you do? I struggle. And this last weekend, I was in Ipswich for a birthday party and stayed in a hotel where they had a bathtub right in the middle of the room. I'm going to include that on Instagram. Please let me know what you think. Is it just me? Am I getting too old and I think it's too cool? You need privacy, or hey, get with the times. It's where things are going. And then the final 3 nights switched to the Williamsburg Hotel in Brooklyn. I specifically chose Williamsburg because it's hipster central, and I wanted to go to Brooklyn and experience it for myself, because over the years, whenever I've gone to New York, I've never actually been to Brooklyn other than to buy black hair products. And I'm literally in and I'm out. And I wanted to go to Brooklyn, experience the vibe, see what it was all about, see some brownstone properties and so forth, and settled on Williamsburg because it's hipster central. I wanted somewhere with fantastic bars, restaurants, coffee shops, and you had an abundance of that, as well as incredibly chic boutiques, one-off boutiques. And I discovered brands such as Merlette out there. Merlette was out there, Catbird that I've spoken about were also out there, and a number of other independent boutiques which I enjoyed just having a look, just to see what was out there, not from a shopping point of view, but just to experience the American retail space. Looked at a number of hotels and ultimately settled on the Williamsburg Hotel. There was another hotel I considered directly opposite, the White Hotel. Ended up dining there quite a few times. And then behind the Williamsburg, there was the Hoxton. Didn't go for the Hoxton because they have a number of branches in the United Kingdom, and I wanted a hotel that was American specific and not many branches around the world, and therefore I'd already have an idea of the look and feel of the hotel. Settled on the Williamsburg because of the aesthetic. Incredibly funky, very trendy hotel. The aesthetics are absolutely beautiful. It's a very young hotel, pulls in an incredibly young clientele. A number of times I felt I was the oldest person out and about at 45. A lot of loud music, particularly in the evenings. The music was incredibly loud. So if you were in the lobby or you were in one of the restaurants or bars, conversation was a little bit stilted because there was just so much noise going on around you. Also tried, they had a roof terrace with a pool. Again, it was a very young place, a lot of people taking pictures, and it was all about being cool and trendy. And I just wanted to go somewhere where I could sit down, relax, enjoy, have something to eat, do some work, read, and snooze. But there was just a lot going on, and then a lot of music as well. They also had a fairly trendy bar, which I didn't try. There were events booked during my stay, the Water Tower, but that offered spectacular views all around. The room itself stayed in a Premier King terrace. It was a little on the small side, but very tastefully decorated, had a balcony outside. Apologies, I totally forgot to take a picture of the views of Manhattan. They were absolutely breathtaking, and they sealed the deal when it actually came to the room. But it was on the smaller side, tastefully decorated, as I mentioned, but I wasn't necessarily there to spend a lot of time in the room, but merely a very comfortable base out and about. Dined in-house, used their restaurant, the Williamsburg, for brunch one of the days, had drinks as well in the bar, but didn't actually dine in the evening or afternoon in the hotel. Went out and tried a number of other places around Williamsburg, and also went back into Manhattan. There are a couple of places I would like to recommend. They're the only 2 restaurants I managed to get into off my wish list. Hopefully next time I'm in New York, I'll be able to try the other restaurants, but I tried to book a month in advance, and that wasn't even enough. The first restaurant, a French restaurant called Le Crocodile in the White Hotel, which is directly opposite the Williamsburg Hotel. Went there a weeknight for dinner, started with drinks upstairs in Bar Blondeau. Absolutely spectacular views of New York from the bar, and then had dinner in Le Crocodile. But what I really liked and highly recommend about Le Crocodile, the food was good, I thoroughly enjoyed it, was the service. The service was faultless. The staff across the board, restaurant and the hotel, are young. And what I found sometimes with young staff is service can be a little mixed. But they were young, they were dynamic, they were engaging, they were attentive. And a conversation I had with a lot of brands was about how things have changed in New York off the back of the pandemic. The hospitality sector, like a lot of sectors, is struggling. People have changed careers, they don't have enough staff, and the staff they have are new, and some don't appreciate the level of service that's required with the premium that the brand is charging. But the chemistry amongst the staff at the White Hotel, and then the way they delivered the service, was absolutely amazing. And they were aware of their shortcomings. They don't have enough staff. Some didn't know the menu as thoroughly. But when something happened, there was an issue, the way they just turned it around without missing a beat was absolutely phenomenal. To the point where I went back on my last day for brunch at Le Crocodile al fresco, and I went back just to confirm, was the service consistent, or was it just a blip from Thursday night? But it was exactly the same. It was fun, it was engaging. They were just so much fun to be around, and they went the extra mile to make the trip, the visit, that much more special. And I thought, my goodness, this is so refreshing, because I didn't get a lot of that in New York. I struggled with the 2 hotels I stayed in, and it was down to the service. And both hotels said, we have had issues off the back of pandemic, new staff, and so forth. But my goodness, the White Hotel was amazing. And if I ever go back to Brooklyn to stay in a heartbeat, it'll be to the White Hotel. The second restaurant, located in Greenwich Village, Blue Hill. I wanted to go to the original Blue Hill in Stone Barns, but time limitations meant I couldn't. And everyone kept saying to me, oh my goodness, that's the Blue Hill experience. But I was incredibly happy with the experience I had in Greenwich Village. Blue Hill is an American restaurant, 1 Michelin starred, and they are a restaurant that pretty much spearheaded this whole farm to table concept. Their menu is focused around local, seasonal, organic ingredients. Their combination of flavors is absolutely outstanding. And what I liked was the fact that the service also matched the quality of the food, cooked to a very high quality. You arrive, the maitre d', the waiting staff who bring out the food. They're fairly formal, structured service. But the barman, I was around the counter, engaging, he was fun, he very much worked off your energy. And if you're chatty, he was chatty, but he knew his product. He's the one who was orchestrating the whole service, bringing things out at the right time. And he was a lot of fun, made good recommendations, one or two things I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. Rectified it very quickly without me even noticing. And service just continued, and thoroughly enjoyed the evening. I would highly recommend it for an incredibly fancy date. Dimmed lighting, good food, great staff, absolutely amazing, or even a special occasion. But I really look forward to trying Stonehill at Stone Barns. I'm going to make it a priority next time I'm in New York. But the two restaurants, Le Crocodile and Blue Hill, very different. Service delivered differently, but both to very high standards. The food was fantastic. I enjoyed it. And I would go again and again. I just want to try new places next time. What would I recommend doing in New York? Well, I had a couple of free days, 2 full days. So I had the Saturday I arrived, and also the Friday before I left, and part of the Saturday as well. So I went out and did some fun things as well. But what I would say to anybody who has never been to New York, I'm not too sure, Nati, if this is your first time, but I would say do some of the more common, the well-known things, the things that make New York as popular as it is. When you see promotional stuff about New York, you'll see Statue of Liberty. Try and go and see that. Ellis Park, the 9/11 Memorial, and then near there is now a new artistic landmark, the Oculus. Absolutely spectacular architecture. I would recommend that. I remember using Grand Central Station to get to Connecticut when I went to see one of the brands. And whenever I go to Grand Central Station, I always spend at least 10 minutes just looking at the ceiling and admiring the architecture of the building. I'd also say throw into that as well the Empire State Building, the Rockefeller Center, look at Times Square. Do all of those. Choose 2 or 3 of those for the experience. What I did specifically, I went to see a musical, specifically the Michael Jackson musical. Enjoyed it, but a little disappointed the songs weren't that long. I think they didn't have the rights to the song, so they were just snippets, and as you were getting into the song, they changed to something else. Also wanted to try and go to a concert. On my bucket list is visiting Madison Square Gardens, but there wasn't anything interesting happening there. In Brooklyn, went bar hopping in Williamsburg, where I was staying, and I would highly recommend. You don't necessarily need to have bars lined up. Just go with the flow. Wherever you like the vibe of, go in there. Also in Brooklyn, I would recommend go and see the Brooklyn Bridge. I ran a couple of times down Williamsburg Bridge and back up Williamsburg Bridge again. Walk around and look at the architecture, the brownstones that are legendary in America. Whenever you watch programs, Sex and the City, you see the brownstones. Have a wander around and see some of those. What else would I recommend? Art. I went to the Guggenheim Museum, something I'd wanted to do for a long time. Also wanted to see the Frick collection, but it was closed the week I was there because they were changing exhibitions. I'd also throw into there the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And if you're somebody who's fearless and you like cycling, which I do, I cycled around, hired one of the city bikes for the weekend. A little bit pricey, $15 for the day. I think it's 24 hours like the United Kingdom, which is significantly cheaper. And then just cycled around New York, stopped in Central Park, walked around for a while, had a sandwich, and just saw different things happening in the park, and really enjoyed that. Also went to Bleecker Street. Bleecker Street is fantastic because there are bars, you have restaurants, really informal restaurants where you don't need a reservation, you just wander in. Same sort of concept in Chelsea Market and also Hell's Kitchen. They have food markets, food halls where you can do stuff like that. Chelsea Market also has vendors, it has artists, it has the eateries, as I've mentioned. And then in between Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen, you have Hudson Yards that I went to see. I wanted to take a look at the mall. Occupancy is fairly low at the moment. You don't have a lot of brands, and I wouldn't recommend going there at all for the shopping. But I would say go, for example, you have three really interesting things. I walked the High Line. Make sure you have comfortable shoes for the day. Walked the entire High Line. It's an area where there used to be train lines, and they've revamped it, and they have grass and benches, and you can walk and sit and chat, and it's a fun space. Also, Hudson's Yard, I would recommend seeing the vessel. It's an art installation. You need a ticket for it. It's free, and then you can walk up. And then the other thing, ticketed, but you do pay for the tickets, it's not free like the vessel, is the Edge Observatory. Incredibly high views over New York. Some of the most breathtaking views you will ever see of New York. So that's just a few things I would recommend you doing. Hope there's something you like, something that piques your interest. Where to shop? As I mentioned, I didn't have the chance to shop as such, but whilst out and about looking at brands, I did pick up a couple of things. The main area I was in was the bottom part of Manhattan, but I'll come back to that in a second. I spent a lot of time on Madison Avenue. On there, there's a pharmacy I would like to recommend. It's called Zatoma's. It's fantastic for your niche brands. I learned about it when I was in the Row, which is also off Madison Avenue. They have a boutique, a big showroom just off Madison Avenue, and the hand soap in their washroom was absolutely amazing, and they directed me to Zatoma, and they have some fantastic niche beauty brands in there. I'd highly recommend if that's something of interest to you. But the main areas I also went to in addition to Madison and Park Avenue were right at the bottom. So I started from the East Village and worked my way down to south of Houston to Soho, went round to north of Houston, and then up towards the West Village, and then onto the Meatpacking District. In that whole area, I really wanted to see, for example, a number of homeware brands that I went for: Crate and Barrel, Williams-Sonoma. Wanted to see how they compare, for example, with Heels and Son or the Conran shop in the United Kingdom. I also wanted to see a lot of your mid-tier American brands, and those are around south of Houston. So think, for example, J. Crew, James Perse, Theory, Rag & Bone, Frame, those sort of brands. There were so many of them around south of Houston. I spent quite a bit of time on Sunday afternoon around there. Also saw Intermix and so many other American brands, as well as European designer brands. And then worked my way up a couple of days later, all the way up to the West Village. Went specifically for Magnolia Bakery. I used to really like banana pudding, but I think I've now outgrown it, but had my last pudding up there. And then went on to the Meatpacking District. Wanted to specifically look at the Greenwich Hotel, and also there's an Hermes store there, and a lot of your top-end luxury brands around there. So I was looking at luxury brands, American brands, European brands, how they're positioned, that general area. And if I was to go shopping in New York, that is where I would blitz. And I would say you need a good 2 full days for that area. But of course, any other questions about what I've spoken about in this video, as always, let me know in the comments down below. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon.